Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. Thank you for those of you who are joining me. Please, if you are on tonight, get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're going to be talking about actually an article that was sent to me. It referenced Kevin Samuels, Steve Harvey, UmarJohnson, Derek Jackson, just all these different people. And so I actually thought it was worth reviewing because I never would have put a UmarJohnson, next to a Derek Jackson's per se, or a Kevin Samuels. I think, all of them have very distinctive ideologies. Now, some of them are similar, but either way. So I wanted to go over this article, which I think really touches up on some key points that I feel like not only are relevant for today, but just honestly, a lot of women agree. And I wanted to read through this article and just dissect and understand, is this right or right? Are Kevin Samuels, Steve Harvey, are these men to blame? And before I go into it, I think it's better that I just bring it up. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I see Don't Trust Ken Heels. The business YouTube channel exposed him a year ago for stealing and messing up his content. Check Jason Black out for results that he has been getting for more than 10 years. Okay, so it sounds like we have a naysayer against Kevin Samuels. I've said before that there are things about Kevin Samuels that I don't necessarily agree with, but there's a lot of things also that I do agree with. And my personal opinion is that overall, his presence in the YouTube space is a net positive. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement. That doesn't mean that there's certain situations or scenarios where it's like, yeah, he was probably a little bit harsh there. Yeah, he could have been nicer. He could have been, but at the end of the day, as far as him giving, I think, practical advice to women who are wanting practical results, I haven't seen anything in my personal opinion that has been that helpful. I've seen a lot of pandering, certainly. I've seen a lot of telling us women what we want to hear, soothing our emotions, telling us what's going to want to make us feel good, but nothing that's actually going to help. And so with some of the things that I have seen from his show, like I said, it's not all perfect. And there are things where it's like, yeah, I don't agree with that. But there's a good portion of it that I do. And I also feel like, the fact that he has a million plus followers, to me, that speaks to an overall need that we have within the Black community, period. But before I get deep into that, let me pull up this article and I want to go right into it. Again, for those of you who are on, please get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. And let me pull this up right now. Said, I really would not put Kevin Samuels in the same category as Derek, Steve, and Umar. Exactly. And that's why when I saw this article, I thought it was a little bit interesting because, to your earlier point, I wouldn't put them in the same category. But it was interesting to see how this writer did that. And like I said, before I go too deep into it, we're just going to read it. Let's see. I'm going to pull it up right now. Y'all have to bear with me. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oops. Having some technical issues here.
If you want
to, okay. This is always a fun part, trying to pull up the stuff. This is why people have producers. Let me see. Y'all bear with me. It's going to be up in just a moment. Producers. Okay, so the article is actually called How Steve Harvey Birthed a Generation of Black Male Relationship Experts and Why Black Women Follow Them. So the premise of this article, right, is that Steve Harvey birthed a generation of men who can be considered relationship experts. Like I said, I would not have put any of these gentlemen necessarily within the same category because as far as I can tell, they all have very distinctive ideologies. Arguably, maybe Derek Jackson and Steve Harvey are the closest. But anyways, we're just going to read through this article and go over what this writer, I think her name is Teo Beru. I hope I did not butcher her name. But okay, we're going to go over what she has to say. Again, if you were on, please get the likes up and tag anybody on this discussion. We're talking about, are these men to blame? Are the Kevin Samuels, the Steve Harveys, Derek Jackson, UmarJohnson, all these men who have quite a following and have quite an influence, are they to blame? Are they the problem in the Black community today? Are they the issue? That is what we were looking at. And this article that I have right now speaks to it specifically. So let me see. Let me see what view I like the best. No, that's not it. Wait, where'd you go? Oh man. And now I have to try this one more again. Sorry, y'all. Share screen. There you go. Okay. Okay. So it says how Steve Harvey birthed a generation of Black male relationship experts and why Black women follow them. So it starts off by saying, when the name Kevin Samuels comes up, you can expect some groans, a lot of anger, and once in a while, the odd supporter who believes in his tough love style of relationship coaching. Funny how she calls his supporters odd. I would consider myself a supporter, although, like I said, there's things that I don't necessarily agree about him. But I think all in all, he's a net positive. It says delivering deeply chauvinistic dating advice through his radio show and YouTube channel, which has a whopping 900,000 subscribers. Now we know he's over 1 million. Samuels has gained his following demonizing Black women, his primary targets, with videos titled, Why Are Women So Angry? And Do Modern Women Owe Men? But still, it's the women who come directly to Samuels for help that truly suffer the worst of his degrading style and unrelenting misogynoir. In one particularly seething session, he took aim at a young Black woman's height, weight, and appearance, claiming that men only want women who are fit. Similarly, he compared another woman who had called into his radio show to a linebacker after he asked her for her height and weight, and she complied. So, a couple of things. Yes, demonizing, that's my... I see, hit the like buttons and run those donations. Yes. Again, feel free to send in your super chats. I appreciate you again for the $2 super chat. Also, if you want to show support, you can find me on CASHAPP or VENMO. ChezCharde, I appreciate all the love. So, it's interesting you mentioned demonizing. She says demonizing Black women. Okay, I am a Black woman and I watch his show pretty regularly. I have a review where I literally watch like 50 hours of a show. I'm kind of embarrassed to say it thinking about it now. But you know, I had your typical reaction when I first started, being really offended, being like, this dude is rude, he has no manners, he's like just very curt, just very kind of dry. There's not necessarily, you know, not necessarily as gracious as he could be. And so I was definitely turned off. And yet at the same time, I was really intrigued because some of the things that I heard him say within those short, minutes of me being offended, I could not deny were actually true and helpful. And so, like I said, as soon as I kind of got back past the tone and got past his approach, and I started to listen to what he was actually saying, I was like, you know what, this dude is, he's on point. I think for most of the time, this dude is on point. Now, there are all times too, if you listen to him more, you'll find times where he's more ingratiating, where he's a lot more patient than he should be. And so at the end of the day, he is a human, and there's probably going to be times where it's like his patience is short, his patience is long. And so we are seeing all gamuts of probably who he is when it comes to that. But like I said, if you get past the tone or whether or not you think he should smile at you, or he should smile, smile at women more as he's saying things, or if he should just keep it cut dry and to the point, what he's actually saying, I think would be really helpful for most women if they listen to it. And the bigger issue I have already out the gate with this is the framing of this. So the framing is that, okay, Kevin Samuels is demonizing women, right? Kevin Samuels is, misogynoir, and he has made money off of just making Black women look bad, basically. A couple of things. Unfortunately, we Black women, we look bad all on our own. We don't necessarily need somebody else to do it. And there's reasons for this. Like I said, there is money to be made. I think anytime Black people or Black culture in general look bad, there's a market for that. So, there's that. And then there's obviously just the way that we are portrayed in the media, the way that we portray ourselves, or we are portrayed in music videos and music in general, when we see who is at the forefront of whole stripper culture. You know what I mean? So it's like the image of the Black woman already, in my personal opinion, is so damaged. Some of that is because of things that have nothing to do with us. And then some of it is also because we perpetuate things. And so I wouldn't go and say, oh, he was responsible for demonizing women, or he is, making money off of shaming Black women. I don't really think that's necessarily what's going on. I think the reality is there's already shame and there's already negativity, unfortunately, associated with our image. And there has to be a space. There has to be a space where Black women and Black men can have honest conversations about what is going on, about, it's just like step one. Some of these conversations are so basic. It's like how to get along. And to me, that shows me how far we have like, I don't know, our consciousness, however you want to put it, have fallen to the point to where like basic things like how to get along with one another, how to have a healthy relationship with ourselves, those things are not being taught. Those things are not even available. And so I can't look at him and say, oh, well, he's shaming Black women, because he is addressing and talking about things that are actually prevalent within the Black community. Now, there is an aspect of me that believes that, these conversations could be had more in a public space, or not public, more in a private setting, or these conversations could be had in a situation that's maybe not so, to where the whole world could see it. But, at the end of the day, he is a businessman. And like I said, unfortunately, our image is publicly defamed. The Black woman's image is publicly defamed. And also our behavior, the bad behavior that some of us have actually shown, is out there in the public. So as a result, it's like these conversations by default are forced to the public. So again, I would not say that he is making money off of shaming Black women. I think we were having much needed conversations. I see it like that. Secondly, what else I think this article does not address is the fact that the starting point of this conversation, the starting point of many of these women calling in, is saying that they essentially have decided that the average man, the man that lives next door to them, the man that they, went to church with or went to school with, the man that they see at the grocery store, that man is not good enough, and they want the top 10% of men. That is the starting point of the situation. And so if you want a rare result, If you want a spectacular result, then you yourself have to be rare and you have to be willing to do rare things or spectacular things. I do not see that as offensive. I see that as practical. If I say, for example, oh, I want to be the CEO of Google, it's incredibly hard to get to that position. So if I say, okay, I want to be the CEO of Google, and then say I go to a business consultant or somebody, and they say, okay, if you want to do that, you need to take these courses. You need to go maybe think about getting a PhD. You need to be working here for, 60 hours a week. You need to go there. You need to go to that event. Like if they give me different things that I need to do that require work on my end, I can't take offense to that because they're giving me the strategy to get to my ultimate goal, which is to become a CEO at Google. And so when I'm hearing these conversations, I think oftentimes what is forgotten is that these women already have said, hey, men on my level or average everyday men do not qualify for me. So if you have said, hey, most men are not good enough for me, I am the top echelon or I am the top of the top, then again, we cannot be offended when we talk about what that actually means. And out the gate, that is what I see not being addressed. And I have noticed this in general. Anytime I see naysayers of Kevin Samuels, it's generally he is misogynoir. He is his tone. I don't like his tone. I don't like his attitude. And he bashes Black women, to which I would say, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with his tone all the time. And again, yeah, there are things that he could probably say nicer. But what we forget is that the starting of this conversation is women who have said the majority of men are not good enough for me. That position already, I'm like, why is that not being questioned? Why are you not saying, hey, we partially have women calling on who have unrealistic expectations. If you were a baby mama of 3, you got 4 baby daddies, you know what I mean? Like, and you are over here talking about, I want a millionaire and he needs to at least be 6 foot. And, I want him to have to work and pay for everything. Like, why are we also not having a conversation about the fact that some of us women in general, we really do not know how to have healthy expectations. And so again, I don't see it offensive if a woman says, I want the top 10% of men. And then he, as a man, Kevin Samuels, who works with these men, says, okay, well, this is what those kind of men want. Do you bring that to the table? I don't see that as offensive at all. That's just real life. And whether or not he tells them or they don't hear it and they just go around believing what they want, the reality is men are still operating that way. So I think it's more helpful for women in general who want that to be armed with information to know, if I want this kind of men, this is actually the expectations. This is a lifestyle that goes along with it. And the reality is, I don't think there's a lot of women who even qualify or really do want that lifestyle. I really don't think they want it. They just, some of us, we've been told, oh, this is what we're supposed to like. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what we're supposed to, live up to. And we have zero understanding of what actually comes to living that way or to being in that lifestyle. So I see because men's preferences are demonized. Absolutely. She's just tuning in, but this article seems to clearly be a hit piece. Yes. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. Again, for those of you guys who are on, please get those likes up. Also, if you would like to show support to the show, you can find me on CASHAPP or VENMO ChezCharde. Also appreciate any super chats or love. So we're going to continue. We are going to continue with this article. So right now, they start up with Kevin Samuels being, misogynoir, him making money off of demonizing women. I've already shared why I don't think that that's necessarily the case. Could he say things a little bit nicer? Yeah, but he's not a motivational speaker and he's not anybody's pastor. So it's like, I can't be mad at him if he's not out there, trying to be all happy, because he's a consultant. He's an image consultant. So he's not getting paid to be nice. He's getting paid to give people information. Take it or leave it. So I continue. It says the problem isn't just that the image consultant is both cruel and completely unqualified for the role for which he has now become so popular. He has a degree in chemical engineering. Samuels is just the latest in a wave of Black men who have built entire careers by dishing out patriarchal advice to Black women on how to find a good man or spot a bad one. Okay, there is a mouthful that she just said. So on him being unqualified, here's the thing: the bar is so low. The bar is so low in the relationship space in general that, as far as I'm concerned, he's no more or no less qualified than anybody else. I mean, for example, we have a lot of femininity coaches out there who have never been married and don't have kids. And that's not a knock against them. I'm not saying they're bad people, but the reality is many women actually desire to be married and have kids. So if you are following a woman who has never done that, if you are following a femininity coach who does not have a track record on how to actually be in a marriage, in a happy marriage at that, then you're just guessing. And again, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but to me that shows me that the qualifications today, there aren't really qualifications. Their qualifications are you have a good personality, you have a good enough following, maybe you look nice, maybe you can, your face is beat, you have really nice, hair, you have portray a good image. That is the qualifications for being really anything in the relationship spectrum. That goes for men. That also goes for women. Like I said, women who are giving relationship advice, giving femininity coaching advice, have no marriage, have no ring on their finger, and don't have kids. Or if they do have kids, it's not within the context of a family. And again, this is not to shame them, but that is because most women today still want marriage and family. It's like, why are we following women? And the bigger issue is like, look, if we're going to hold these qualifications to Kevin Samuels or to these men and say, oh, well, they're unqualified, then why are we as women following other women who arguably are just as unqualified? So that's what I'm saying. To me, that's a moot point. That's a moot point because in the relationship spectrum in general, men and women, you have many people who are leading who are not qualified. And again, what qualifies them maybe is their theories, is maybe they do have good advice, but you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because it hasn't actually been tested through their own life. Kevin Samuels, he's been married before. Now he's also been divorced. So, and he doesn't, from my understanding, he does not position himself as a marriage counselor. He's like, I'm an image consultant. I'm going to get you in the door. Anything apart from that, you need to talk to your pastor, your therapist, or whoever, So I think that's a moot point. People in the relationship spectrum, men and women, are disqualified. Now, as far as patriarchal advice, this is where I also disagree. The reason I disagree is because by default, I think the things that men want are considered patriarchal. So if we were to say that heterosexual men by default are patriarchal, then yes, we can say that. But in my humble opinion, he is just saying things that many men think. It just is what it is. I don't think it's necessarily coming from a controlling point of view. It's just, this is what men think and this is what they like. And unless you can change heterosexuality, I don't think many things are going to change regarding that. So anyways, for those of you who are on, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We are talking about Kevin Samuels, Steve Harvey. Are they to blame? The UmarJohnsons of the world, the Derek Jackson, are they to blame? I'm going through this article that I think did a really interesting job of tying them all together. And I'm just giving my perspective because I think this writer, in my opinion, captures a common idea among women right now in particular. And so I just want to give my thoughts on it. Again, if you would like to show support to the show, I would really appreciate it. You can find me on CASHAPP, ChezCharde. You can also send in your super chats. Okay, so I'm moving on. So it says, if Samuel's relationship advice is a bit too harsh for your taste, let me see. Okay, yeah. So if Samuel's relationship advice is a bit too harsh for your taste, there's always Derek Jackson. This self-love ambassador developed a huge following for viral videos, many of them recorded inside of his car, where he delivered relationship pointers to his 712K deep YouTube audience. Seeming to take a kinder, more empathetic approach to the topic, Jackson gained the trust of hundreds of thousands of women who were looking for answers in their love lives or seeking a sympathetic male perspective to help them make sense of a tempestuous dating scene. It says, one word, Black woman sold the idea that men held the cheat codes understanding. Says, and it's not just them. A few other well-known and controversial figures in the Black online space have also dipped their toes into the murky waters of the dubious enterprise, profiting off of the Black women who come to them seeking legitimate guidance. Social media commentator and film producer Tariq Nasheed is notorious for his misogynistic, queerphobic, xenophobic, and often ahistorical commentary on Blackness in America. Okay, there's a lot he said here. I'm gonna circle back a bit. So, my personal opinion, Derek Jackson a primary difference I think that Derek Jackson and Kevin Samuels have out the gate is that Kevin Samuels actually has the support of men. He has the support of men and women. Kevin Samuels also has a lot of, haters, primarily female, just a few male haters, but primarily women. But he actually has the support, I think, of both genders. Derek Jackson has always really been heavily, heavily supported by females only. I have never met one man in my life, in person or online, who has ever supported Derek Jackson's advice to women. Most men that I have listened to, and this is before his scandal came out, most men that I listened to said that he was totally pandering to women. Kevin Samuels is accused of doing just the opposite. He is not accused of pandering. He's accused of women hating. Nothing that Derek Jackson said was, to me, in my opinion, misogynoir. Nothing. It was always very much like, hey, you're the prize, you're the queen. Single mothers are the best options, things like that. So as far as our ideology, completely different. Maybe the one thing they have in common is they are both attractive African American male that could appeal to, women as far from a physical standpoint. They're both tall, and well put together. But apart from that, their ideology, totally different. I see zero comparison between the two. So moving on. So he's a self-love ambassador, which even a self-love ambassador, generally speaking, I see this self-love conversation generally happening among if I'm wrong, but generally happening among like females. I don't see it as much among men. And when it is among men, oftentimes those men, in my opinion, are speaking to women specifically. So again, I don't really see men a lot in this whole self-love, love yourself conversation. So like I said, that's just one of many differences, in my opinion, between Derek Jackson and Kevin Samuels. Okay, let me see. Moving on. It says, okay, so Tariq Nasheed has weaponized terms like bed wench against modern day Black women who are in relationships with non-Black men, and his latest film about buck breaking, a term that denigrates Black queer men, suggesting that they are tools of white supremacy being used to harm the Black community. The latter idea isn't Nasheed's alone. It's one that is pervasive throughout the Black community, rooted in religious and social constructs that position homosexuality as a blight on male masculinity and a way to suppress our capacity to reproduce as a race. While pushing this agenda, Nasheed has also found time to write several relationship advice books, including this one with the misogyny written right into the title, Play or Be Played, What Every Female Should Know About Men Dating in Relationships. I don't know what's misogynoir about that title. I'm trying to figure that out. Okay, so she's basically saying that, that Tariq Nasheed is also, it sounds like what she's doing, in my opinion, is just finding dudes who Black men that she just does not agree with ideologically, and then trying to lump them all together. Because I'm like, what does Tariq Nasheed and Derek Jackson have in common? I'm not following whatsoever. Thank you, Philip, for that super chat. I see nothing new. Going against the hive comes with its fallout. Perpetuators won't give in easy, if at all. It hits them, and home leading to butt hurt syndrome. Right. Again, I appreciate the super chat. Much love to you. Yeah, like I said, it sounds like I'm trying to understand. It definitely sounds like to me, this article is just finding men in particular that they don't like for some reason. Derek Jackson was well liked by most women until he cheated. I think if he hadn't cheated, then he wouldn't be in this article. my opinion. Okay, I'm just going to continue. It says, then there's UmarJohnson, the self-proclaimed prince of Pan-Africanism, regularly dispatches harmful photep takes on everything from governmental conspiracies to how queer people are destroying the Black family. According to Johnson, the inclusion of sexual orientation and gender in the Civil Rights Act was a way to strip Black people of the gains that the act was intended to yield for them, as if Black women and Black queer people don't exist and intersect. Just like Samuels and Jackson, much of Nasheed and Johnson's platforms have been dedicated to educating Black women on how to keep a good Black man. And back then, OG Housewives fans will remember that Johnson was featured in an early season with Atlanta Crew, where he hosted a relationship seminar that Kenya Moore attended. And for years, his appearance on radio shows that seminars and on college campuses have included advice for Black women on how they can achieve a successful relationship. Okay. So just how did the find a good man industrial complex come to be? When were Black women sold the idea that men held the cheat code to understanding other men, in that they were willing to hand them over to women for a benefit? Two words: Steve Harvey. So, okay, so it sounds like up to this point, the writer, right, is basically saying having men speak about relationships or giving advice to women about relationships is negative, is a net positive. I mean, is a net negative, if you will. It is bad. And then she cites her different sources saying it's because, it's misogynoir, it's patriarchal, it is, it's old school, it is discriminatory, et cetera, et cetera. So my thoughts on this are, I will speak, I will speak for women who are legitimately interested in marrying a man or being with a man. If you're a woman who is interested in men, you're going to want to hear what they think. To me, that's like common sense, right? Like if you want to marry, if you want to be in a relationship, if you want to be with a particular person, then you're going to want to find out what it is that they like, what they want. And so I do not see it as a negative whatsoever. I think actually men should be involved in those conversations. Now, here's the thing. I think in a healthier society, many of these things would be taught at home. Unfortunately, Kevin Samuels, for whatever reason, is having to tell some of these young women things that they should have heard at home, things they should have heard from their moms, from their grandmothers, from their fathers, from their uncles. And so to me, that speaks to a bigger problem. But in general, I think it is a positive thing to have the opposite sex included in the conversations about relationship, because if you are attracted to the opposite sex, you're going to want to know what they like. You should want to know what they like. That should not be a bad thing. And so I don't understand. And I've even seen this in some times within the manosphere, but there's different people in the manosphere who are upset that there are women. I don't even know if you consider women being in the manosphere, but there are women out there who don't hate men, right? And who are talking about men, and they're getting support from men. And I've seen some men be like, oh, this is bad, this is bad. And I'm like, at the end of the day, right? If men like women, then they're going to want to be around pretty women, period. If women like men, they're going to want to be around attractive men. Like that's just that. You cannot change heterosexuality, y'all. You cannot change it. So like to me, I don't necessarily see an issue there, but for whatever reason she does, and I don't understand that. Like I said, as a woman, I'm now married, but if I was a single woman, I would want to learn as much as possible about the men that I want to marry me, so that I could actually get married. To me, it seems like common sense. Moving on. Okay. I see new watcher. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Get those likes up, y'all. Again, I appreciate any love, any super chats. If you want to show some support, you can find me on CASHAPP and VENMO. We are going to move on. So this is interesting. It says, I don't know why so many sisters fall in line with the white liberal feminist mindset. That is a different conversation. I see new watcher. Again, shout out. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Okay, so moving on. So now she is saying who started all of this? Who is the funder, the father of all this? Steve Harvey. Now we get into Steve Harvey. It says, everything you need to know about men and relationships is right here. Harvey declared in the opening pages of 2019 bestseller, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. The book was supposed to help women find out what men really thought about love, intimacy, and commitment, filled with what I'm sure Harvey considers to be actual nuggets of wisdom. It functions more as a collection of sweeping generalizations about men that they only serve to absolve them of any real agency and responsibility in relationships. Men are simple, he announces. Get this into your head, and everything you learn about us in the book will begin to fall into place. To this day, Harvey has zero credentials that would qualify him to dollar his advice in the fashion and scale that he does. So again, as I mentioned before, most people within the relationship sector do not have any credentials. We have femininity coaches teaching women how to be feminine who aren't married and who don't have kids. And again, many women want to be married and have kids. So that is not a knock against those women. But what I'm saying is that us women, we are very quick to follow people that we like that are unqualified. If they speak to us, if we can relate to them, if they look cute, if they have nice outfits, if they say the right things, that has never changed. Having good qualifications among women, and even within the Black community in general, having good qualifications has never necessarily been a thing. What's been more important is having the personality, really, and the good talking points. Now, Steve Harvey, although he was divorced a few times, he actually is married. And so, for that reason, he's more qualified than some other people who are in the relationship spectrum because he's done it wrong. He's also done it right. So as far as I'm concerned, he is qualified. You know, Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. I see. We don't need women in the manosphere telling men what we are saying. That's the big objection to women in the manosphere. Set your sisters right. Right. So, like I said, there's men out there who are like, nah. And to me, I see it. It's very much. It's a blurry line because being a woman just being a woman who's just like, hey, I'm a heterosexual woman, and here's what I agree or like with. I, as a woman, may say something that a man from the manosphere may say. That doesn't mean that I'm a man in the woman in the manosphere. It just means that, like, as a heterosexual woman and as a man who's heterosexual, there's going to be things that we're aligned on. So to me, like, saying things that are just common sense does not necessarily mean that, like, you are a woman in the manosphere. Me personally, being a woman in the manosphere is like you are hardcore speaking. You're red pill, like you are red pill all the way. Like you are only speaking to men. You are only bringing men on. That's another conversation. But either way, I personally think that it is helpful if the idea is for men and women to come together, then men and women should be listening to one another. With that said, as a woman, I tend to speak more to women because I am one. I'm not going to sit here and tell a man how to be a man. That's not my place. Yes, there are things that men can improve and should improve on, but I'm speaking to women, and that's my place. And so I do think that, like, yeah, as a female, I don't need to be going over here, running courses and telling men what to do. Like, that's not really my thing. I need to focus on females because we got enough stuff going on. So, moving on. Okay, let me see. Get some water. So here we go. Steve Harvey has 0 credentials. And the audacity, this is the personality, and the audacity of him to position himself as an expert on how to keep a relationship becomes even more absurd considering that the former radio host and comic has his own long, messy relationship history consisting of alleged infidelity, 3 different marriages, and the philosophy you've got to get a divorce to find the right chick. Harvey denied the accusation of infidelity through his lawyer, calling them slanderous and malicious. Okay, so again, would I take a relationship advice from somebody who's been divorced a long time, yada yada? Probably not. I mean, maybe you can take certain things, but the bigger point is, while she is singling Steve Harvey out and saying he's not qualified, my thing is many of the women aren't. Also, many of the women relationship femininity coaches are also not qualified, and so this is a bigger issue. This isn't just like, oh, Black men pandering to women, like this is an issue that happens all across the board. So that's, to me, that's why I'm like, if you're gonna have beef with him, then we have to go down. We got to find all these female relationship coaches out there who are telling stuff to women all the time, and they also need to be implicated in the same crimes. Okay, it says, in any case, Think Like a Man was later adapted into a movie of the same name starring a number of Black Hollywood films finest like Taraji Henson, Megan Good, and Michael Ealy. Film critic Roger Ebert wrote that the movie's mistake is to take the book seriously. This might have worked as a screwball comedy or a satire, Ebert continued, but can you believe for a moment in characters naive enough to actually live their lives following Steve Harvey's advice? Funny. Sadly, this is no satire, and judging from the millions who bought the book, TLAM was at best trite entertainment, and at worst used as an actual roadmap for how to understand the inner workings of men. It is number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list for several weeks, and still maintains at least a 4-star rating on most book sites today. Total side note, I know a white woman who's actually now married with a kid who told me she read the book from Steve Harvey. It helped her. I haven't read the book. I have never read it, so I can't speak to it. But like I said, this is a white girl that I knew. And she was like, look, I read the book. It helped me. And she's happily married now with a kid. So, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, let me see. Where do we leave off? Okay, so it says, it was during this era that the black man as a relationship expert truly emerged in all of its glory. TLAM came about as a byproduct of Harvey's time as a morning radio host, where, according to the book, women would call him for relationship advice. The Ask Steve segment of the Steve Harvey morning show was apparently a hit, and even though Harvey himself admits that advice thing started out as somewhat of a joke, he quickly found that women were earnestly seeking and taking his counsel on men. And again, why are women listening to men? Because women want to be with men. I think the best thing that you can do as a woman is take relationship advice from men. You also want to take relationship advice from women too, to a certain extent, but it's like a woman is not going to be able to tell you how a man thinks. A man should. And this is ideally where, again, fathers should be the primary one to teach you that. Fathers, grandfathers, uncles, brothers. Like, this is where ideally these kinds of things would be taught in the context of a family and community, so we wouldn't have to have a $1 million industry where people are just teaching others common sense things. But unfortunately, because the family is broken down, we have to resort to things like this. But my personal opinion is it is healthy to hear from a man's perspective. Now, us women, that may be hard to hear sometimes, because so much of what we heard definitely comes from more of a feminist leaning standpoint, definitely comes from a woman point of view. And that has value, but it starts being dangerous when we have to snuff out the other side. And when what men are saying starts to become threatening, that's when it becomes a problem, So again, for those of you who are on, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're talking about, a few different things. I mean, are Kevin Samuel, Steve Harvey, are they the issue? Are they the blame? Are they the problem in the Black community? Are they the problem among Black women? Okay. Okay, so we're getting there. Let's see. Okay, so it says, in Jackson, so the facade fell when the world found out that he had engaged in multiple extramarital affairs, to the torment of his wife of 4 years. Unfortunately, it says, it says Olivia F. Scott wrote in Essence magazine that as an avid supporter of Jackson, she was hurt and disappointed when the news came out. She also spoke with a respected psychotherapist who shared that in a virtual session over the past several days, she's seen clients who are hurt, angry, and feel taken advantage of by this exposure. Jackson has since announced a new book capitalizing on his recent infamy, Heal Together Without Hurting Each Other. It's no surprise that Black women are falling victim to these scams. There is an overwhelming amount of popular media, cultural messaging, and actual peer-reviewed study that is dedicated to telling Black women there is something wrong with them that needs to be fixed in order to find a good man. Okay. This is a long article. It said she wrote a book. I'm over having drink water. I'm like, my voice is starting to hurt. I need to practice. I need to warm up my voice before doing all this. I didn't know it was going to be so long. Couple of things. So, as I said before, it's my personal opinion. It is healthy as a woman to want to hear from men, period. That is not scamming. That is common sense. A woman that wants to marry, is interested in marrying men, needs to hear what men want and needs to hear what they think. And if they're not getting that at home because they grew up with single mothers, or they grew up without seeing a man and a woman work together, they have to get it somewhere. So it is healthy as a woman to want to understand the way men think if you desire to be in a relationship with a man. Right. Now, this talk of scamming, you know, again, I can't say that all these men are scamming. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that whatsoever. They all have such different ideologies. They all have such different vantage points that it's like that's hard to make that distinction. Now, if we want to go there, I mean, Derek Jackson's activity certainly questionable. Certainly questionable. Like, we know for a long time we didn't, you know, many women didn't know about his wife, or he hid it, which partially was the appeal. Let's just be honest. He was a very attractive guy that kept up his appearance, and a lot of women, I think, liked him because he spoke to them emotionally, didn't require that they change at all, and really fed them hope. I think he kind of gave them this idea of, this is the kind of man that you should have. My issue was that, knowing, you know, how men think, most men that I've seen don't think like that. And so my personal issue with Derek Jackson, even before his scandal, was that I believe he was saying things that men don't really think like. He was giving recommendation or giving advice that most men wouldn't accept as true. And so I saw that as questionable, especially when you started talking about, you know, when he just started telling women, oh, like, yeah, single, you know, baby mamas are the best, and here's why, or, you know, women love your curves, or different things like that. Like, not necessarily saying that there's men out there who marry women with kids. And like I said, Black men are the most body positive. So there are Black men out there who marry BBWs. But he started saying these things to me that just didn't require any accountability. And to me, that's why I was like, nah, you're pandering. Kevin Samuels is certainly not doing that. He is in no way, shape, or form saying things that are just like, oh, Black woman, you're a goddess, you're a queen, love your curves. Every man's gonna love your curves. Nah, no. That is literally not happening. I see hope is one of a truck. That is facts. Selling hope. And so not all of these men are selling hope. So that's what I'm saying. To kind of stick them all in the same article, to me, or stick them all like in the same vein, seems a little bit disingenuous. But it just sounds like this article just does not like these people personally for whatever reason, which is fine. But they have very different talking points. Tariq Nasheed, not as familiar with this stuff. I just, from what I've heard, I know he's kind of changed ideology a little bit over time, or evolved, however you want to put it. But I can't say either way. But I know he just do a lot of things related to the Black community. So, but I've never heard him, you know, really having a lot of courses, a lot of material dedicated to teaching women about relationships. So, again, I'm not seeing the scamming aspect of it being consistent across the board for all of these men. Okay, let me see. So she says, it is no surprise Black women are falling victim to these scams. Again, is this really a scam? No, some of it is. Some of it is a scam. Selling hope is a real thing. But Black women are falling prey to scams from Black women too. Let's be honest. Like, this is not just, oh, you know, among women. I mean, I was talking to a girl the other day who was telling me about, you know, she's, you know, signed up this course to do femininity coaching or whatever. And I'm trying to get a sense of like, okay, so what are her qualifications? And it's like, I don't know, it's just a good course. And I can't say, you know, that was necessarily a bad thing, but to me, the bigger issue is that, like, we have a lot of people selling courses, have a lot of people selling stuff that act like experts, and we don't know the qualifications. They just look good. That's what I'm saying. I see this among men, and I see this among women. Like, we cannot just act like this is one-sided. It says, okay, judging from the comment section of Samuel's YouTube page, the appetite for solutions to these romantic quandaries is as strong as ever, even when the advice being given is far from healthy or even useful. What's the point of coming onto the show to talk about your problem with finding a man to marry if you're not going to listen to the reason why you're having a problem? Which is true. You got females coming on there talking about, oh, I want solutions. And then he gives practical solutions and like, oh, well, no, like just completely rejecting it. And it's like, well, I mean, if you're coming on to be for some consulting and you reject the consulting, well, that's on you. You know, you get to test and find out whether or not what you're doing is still working for you or not. So, full of women. And then it says, okay, that's not to mention his YouTube live streams, which are full of women willing to pay Samuels to teach them how to find a man. It says, when participating in the dating scene, Black women are navigating the slippery nuances of racism, colorism, and misogyny, all of which have a huge bearing on their dating outcomes. 2014 data from OkCupid, for example, found that Black women were having far less success on dating apps than white women were. In fact, Black women consistently received the worst ratings for potential dates based simply on a view of their profiles. The official numbers were also bleak. The 2009 U.S. Census data showed that nearly 40% of Black women aged 34 to 39 had never been married, compared to just over 13% of white women, with Black women preferring to date within their race and with Black men making up 34% of the U.S. prison population. Black women who prefer to date and marry Black men are up against significant challenges. You know, it's interesting how she framed that. So from what I'm understanding, she's saying, okay, the biggest stand is why I'm seeing some comments through. So interesting how she framed that, right? So this idea that, like, look, Black women are seen as the least beautiful. Racism and colorism and misogyny are keeping them from being marriageable, on top of the fact that Black men are in jail. So this is why that they're not getting married. That basically, that to me, that's what she's saying. Thank you for the super chat. See, I don't think they want solutions. I think they want their nonsense to be validated. Bingo. I would agree. I would completely and totally agree. You know, the interesting thing about this, even this morning, I had this situation where y'all, many of y'all know, I did a review of Cynthia G last week, and I'm going to continue to do those kinds of reviews as I am learning and growing and wanting to understand what are modern women today ingesting, what are they feeding off of, what is it that we are hearing, because I think that's really important. As a woman in the space who is talking to women, it's like, I need to know what's going on. So, you know, I did a review of her channel and shared, you know, my perspective, looked at some of the different talking points, lined it up against facts, and was like, you know, here's what I agree. And so, of course, I had naysayers in there. And I'm starting to engage with some of these naysayers. And I'm like, okay, if I missed the point, if I was incorrect historically or factually, what's the right answer? Like, do you have stats? Do you have like reports? Like, I don't need to be right on everything. If I miss something, let me know. And what I continue to find time and time again was nobody could give me an answer. When I'd say, okay, so what did I miss? They'd say, oh, well, you're a mammy. I'm like, okay. And then it'd be like, okay, well, this is incorrect. You're just totally incorrect. Well, okay, well, what's the right answer? Do you have stats? Do you have a study? Like, let me know. And they're just like, oh, well, you're just dusty. And so I'm just like, every single time I try to engage in a real conversation to learn, to say, hey, if I missed something, if I overlooked something, let me know. No one had an answer. And I'm like, time again, I'm just like, y'all aren't serious. You just are, your feelings are hurt. You are butt hurt. You are not trying to change. You are not trying to change.
I is what I is, and I'm not changing.
That's how some people be.
I is what I is, and I'm not changing.
It's like they are hell bent. They are hell bent on just being how they are. They're just like, I'm not changing. And so at that point, if you are working backwards from your conclusion, it's like, this is not a genuine conversation. So to your point, yes, I think you are totally right. And I also appreciate the super chat. Says this article just seems like a blanket attack on non-socially liberal Black. That's what I'm saying. That, like, I actually think that's basically what it's coming down to, because I'm really trying to understand, like, how are all these dudes related? Like, some of the stuff, like, you had to really be creative to try to, you know, draw a connection. I could maybe see Steve Harvey and Derek Jackson, but I'm like, Kevin Samuels ain't nowhere in that vicinity. UmarJohnson, maybe, but I'm just like, to me, I'm like, there's just, you had to really think hard to try to bring that all together. And I think to your earlier point, it just sounds like you don't like him. But anyways, and then let me see this super chat. It says, as much as I love Black women, I'm scared for life. If it's a Black woman, it will definitely not be one from America. It's sad to say, as my daughter is Black. You know, honestly, and I may not be popular for saying this, but I am all for a man going wherever he needs to go to find a woman who will actually respect him. Like, you know, of course, you know, you hope that would be somebody in your neighborhood or something close. You don't have to work so hard to find it. But I'm like, at this point, I have good friends of mine who are legitimately like, I'm going to Thailand next month. I'm going to Nigeria. I'm taking a little trip to the Dominican Republic. Like at this point, I'm like, look, you need to go where you can find a woman who is going to be okay being a woman that can work with you. I would never, ever, ever, especially traditionally minded men. I'm like, I would never encourage them to marry a modern woman because that would be a recipe for disaster. The modern woman would be unhappy and that man would be unhappy. It'd be horrible. So I'm like, yeah, I am all for that. If that is the best option, you should not limit yourself to just what's around you. My opinion. It says it's five men's fault black women are in last place. No accountability. Bingo. So okay, I kind of went a little bit on a tangent here. It says so basically, yeah. So she alluded to the fact that okay, so according to OkCupid, so that's one study. I'd like to look at the methodology, but either way, in one study, black women were rated last. Again, I'd have to look at the methodology, really understand what was going on before I could really say, okay, if whether or not that is the case in most instances. But let's just be honest. Anecdotally, we as a black woman, know that we don't have good reputations. We don't have good reputations with our attitude. We don't have good reputations for how we maintain ourselves, for our character and our decorum. And so I think that has more to do with anything, just how our image has been so degraded. I think that's primary reason that we're not seen as like the top of the top. Now, of course, racist system, that is a real thing. And for so many years, black people weren't even considered humans in America. That's being human in America as a black person is a recent phenomenon. So yeah, that's going to have some implications. But I think my opinion, the bigger issue is that it's not within black community. It's not because men are misogynoir. It's not because men have adopted the beauty standards of white women. I did a deep dive on this on my Black Beauty Standards video, where I found multiple times that black men to this day have a distinctive beauty standard from white men. Within black culture, we have a distinctive beauty standard that to this day still exists. It's like, from body type, from, different preferences. It's distinctive. And like I said, this is not just, my opinion. There is sociological data out there to show this. We saw that basically black men prefer lack of a better term, they prefer a curvier build. That hip to waist ratio, that is, they prefer a curvier build, where white men generally were more preferential to smaller frames. And there are a few other different things too, but it's just like, so there is sociological data to say that, like, nah, black men generally like things different than white men. So we can't say that, these black men over here are desiring these white bodies or these white proportion bodies, because that's just not true. Most people in general, by default, prefer what looks like them, or are attracted to what looks like them. So black men are still generally predominantly attracted to black women. So we can't necessarily say or even suggest that one reason black women are not being married is because they are not desired from their men. That's just not, when you actually do a deep dive and you do a study on this, you find that's not true. See, Ethiopia, South Africa, Ghana, Brazil, Tanzania are the top 5 countries to find marriageable black women, according to the Brothers on Black Men Travels. Very, very interesting. I went to Tanzania. I've been to Tanzania before. Beautiful place, lovely people. I haven't been to Ghana yet, but I'd like to. In Brazil and South, all those areas I'd like to go to. So, yeah, so there's that, and then there's I've heard the argument, okay, of there's a lot of black men in jail, but that does not take into account the amount of black available men outside of jail who have never been to jail that are available. And we know, what is it now? 54% of black men are single and childless, and is it like 60% of them are in the middle class? Somewhere around there. It is somewhere around there. I don't remember the exact stats, but it is basically saying that even with the disproportionate of black men, and even now black women, because black women now are getting more incarcerated. Another story. There are still a lot of black men out there who are actually available, at least from a they are available for marriage, right? So we can't just say like, oh, there's not enough black men out there and they don't like us physically. That's just not true. I think there are bigger, deeper issues out there that lead to the fact that there's so many different women right now asking, genuinely asking for help on how to attract black men because they want it, because they want marriage, because they desire a relationship. They don't want to be single. They don't want to be alone. And they're desperate because they didn't grow up learning healthy things. So I think when we create this narrative that says that it is bad, it is negative that black men are speaking to women about relationships, I would disagree. I would say no, it is good that black men are speaking to women about relationships, and it's also good that men would hear what women are thinking. Because again, if you want to work with a person, if you are attracted to a person, you have to know how they think. And again, ideally, we would get this in the context of a family, but so many of us come from broken situations. It's like we're just starting from step one. You know what I mean? For those of you who are on, please get the likes up and tag anybody on the discussion who you think may find it interesting. I think we are almost done with this article. I see. What do you think about the Boise State professor Scott Yinner and the speech he gave about gender roles? You know what? I'm not familiar with that. So I can't speak on it, but maybe that's something I can look into. But yeah, maybe like link it down. If you could maybe link that, if it's like a YouTube, link it down in the comment section, maybe. That'd be helpful. I could check it out. Okay, we're almost done, I think. Hopefully, yes, we're almost done. Yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of black women who have not been married. You know, the interesting thing about it, another thing before I move on, interesting about it is that this 20, 30, 40 years ago, however many long, like there's a time when black women not being married at such high rates, I think that would have been considered a good thing. It's like, yay, feminism, because marriage was seen as confining. It was seen as oppressive to a certain extent. So it's interesting now that we're fast forward and now we're looking back and having this conversation and saying, hey, well, why aren't many black women married? And it's like, well, isn't this what we wanted? Isn't this what feminism was about? Giving them the option to say, I can choose to marry or I cannot choose to marry. So it's like, why are we complaining about an option that we fought for? I don't know. That's just a thought. Okay. So now she's talking about Derek Jackson. Okay, it says, and while marriage itself has long been touted as the ultimate goal and measure of success for black men regularly impose patriarchal, Eurocentric, and attainable standards of beauty on those same. So I didn't even get this far, and I already talked about it. That's just a lie. That's actually a lie. Black men, statistically, right, scientifically, have been shown that they just have different beauty standards. A black man will marry a BBW. A black woman that is considered overweight by BMI can be considered A9 if she is curvaceous in the right places. It's possible. So it's like, no, black men are not over here. That's just not true. Most black men do prefer their own women. Now there are certainly colorist men out there, but I think for every colorist black woman, you're going to find a colorist black woman too. If I'm just being honest, because how many? Oh, girl, he got good hair. Or I like them light eyes. You know what I mean? Conversations have I overheard and been a part of. So it's like the colorism is on both sides. It really is. Because black features have also historically been denigrated on black women and celebrated on non-black women, creating a perfect storm for men to treat black women as undesirable. Black women who date men are then left desperately seeking answers from seemingly understanding men who seem to hold secrets they would. Yeah, I don't agree with this. This low key sounds like that other video that that the false promise of black love video that I reviewed, where I'm just like, I could understand how you're coming to this point, but it's just not true. If you actually do a deep dive, I think what is more true is that the relationship between black men and women is certainly complicated. If we look to the media and say, hey, the top 1% of men on media are married to preferences, and then you use that and try to apply that to all black women, period, who are married, you're going to come to a really, really bad conclusion. You are. You are. And then, like I said, also, by the way, Black people don't own the media. So we really shouldn't look to them on how we are portrayed, because obviously it is controlled by, other people. We're not involved in the conversation of how we are portrayed. And then secondly, like I said, because we don't own media, there are successful, high earning, high value Black couples, if you will, who don't really get a lot of coverage, who don't get really a lot of media. And so I just think sometimes we come to just these weird erroneous conclusions. And I think a bigger issue is that many of us men and women just grew up not knowing how to accurately and healthily relate with the opposite sex, men and women included. And with that, now you have this idea that I believe that it just within our culture in general, there's a disrespect that is tolerated for each other. There's a disrespect that is especially tolerated for men, I think, in the Black culture, because for so long there's this idea of us being a matriarch, and there's this idea of Big Mama being the one that kind of hold things together. And so again, you don't ever talk about Big Mama. You don't talk about her, but you can always do a little jab at about a dad, or do a little jab at your grandpa, whatever. Like it was more socially acceptable within, I think, in our community, to negatively betray and talk about our men. And that's not to say that there aren't bad things that have happened. There are Black men out there who have done bad things, who do need to be held accountable. Absolutely. And there are also things that Black women have done that need to be held accountable. But I grow leery of any argument or point that seeks to just shift the blame on one side, and recognize at the end of the day, if we don't start seeing things as like, hey, this is a community, this is a collective of men and women that are supposed to work together. If we always see ourselves as, I'm a Black woman over there, Black man over there, and they're constantly bickering, it's like a bad divorce. Nothing's ever going to get accomplished. You're not ever going to be able to build and move forward. And from what I've seen up to this point, this article is essentially, it's kind of reinforced that. So we're going to get almost done, because I'm trying to get hungry here. So, okay, yeah. So she's saying, yeah, basically Black men don't respect Black women, and then they're all in prison. Not true. Now there's certainly disrespect within the community. Yes, on both ends. Okay, so we're almost done. It says no, and it says and the male inside, the notion of finally getting to see behind the curtain is what really helps sell the whole deal. Samuels, on the other hand, shows no signs of letting up. The easily digestible and widely popular format of the online relationship therapist means that there will always be an audience for his content, no matter how egregious it is. As for Harvey, if there was any further proof of his hypocrisy and the inefficacy of his advice, it would be the fact that his own daughter, Lori Harvey, doesn't seem to be following it and appears to be thriving in high-profile relationships that she defines on her own terms. And she's not the only one who appears to be tuning him out. In 2019, the king of shaky advice had his talk show, Steve, canceled in favor of the Kelly Clarkson show. But even though he lost one of his biggest platforms, the space he opened up has continued to thrive, always just one click away. Huh. I'm sorry. I think I'm looking right now. Why there's some back when regularly imposed racial trend have always certainly been in back when creating a perfect song for men to treat Black women as Black women who date men as legend. Okay, so yeah, so the article's done. Basically, Black men bad, Black women are victims. That if I just sum that up, Black men bad, Black women are victims. So here's the thing. I can't necessarily say that all these men are the issue, that they are to blame. Neither of them are perfect. All of them are, by my estimation, completely and totally different. So I'm still trying to figure out how she linked them together. It was creative how she did that, but at the end of the day, I just think the article was just saying, look, Black men are having a space where Black men can give relationship advice to women, Black women in particular, is negative, and it continues to reinforce unrealistic, unhealthy expectations on these women. I just don't agree. I think that men and women should both be involved. Both of their voices should be heard when it comes to relationships and family. And it just so happens that for the most part, we have heard primarily the female narrative. And now that we're actually hearing men speak, especially if you are a woman that didn't grow up around a lot of men or did not grow up around strong men, you didn't hear how they thought, you don't understand how they function, straight, if you want to call it straight alpha male or whatever, the male voice, the male perspective can sometimes be alarming, or it can sometimes seem a little bit like, whoa, this is too much. And so I think there's some women who actually have a visceral reaction because they've just spent their whole life listening to women. And if you actually want to be with a man, then that's not necessarily going to be the most helpful. So again, I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy to continue to have conversations, men and women coming together and engaging and having these kinds of conversations, because at the end of the day, a lot of Black women are not married and they desire to do so. And they're not going to learn how to get married if they just listen to, single women, single unmarried women who have never been in a relationship with a man, or who don't even know how men think. That's not going to help the problem. That's going to continue to perpetuate the problem. So she said throw the whole article away. Yeah, that was an interesting one. Like I said, I wanted to go over it because I was curious to see how they kind of tied everybody together. Uh yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But anyways, y'all, I appreciate all of you guys for bearing with me. I really appreciate it. Also, again, if you have not already and you would like to support the Black Men Built That campaign, please sign up to become a channel member. I have, I think, about 6 new members since we have launched this campaign, which I'm excited about. But the goal is to get about 300. So we have a lot more, a lot more room for y'all to sign up if you would like to. And again, the goal here is that if you would like to actually promote content that's going to start to fight some of this propaganda and show more of a balanced view, and also talk about some of the positive things that have happened in the community from Black men, then this is something that you're going to want to support. You can do it for as low as $4.99 a month. And again, my goal is to have about 300 new members, and then hopefully with that income I can use those resources to start to create videos that talk about the different things, the different contributions Black men have made in this society. I mean, you're talking, engineers, inventors, mathematicians, doctors, and infrastructure, just all kinds of things, technology. And so if that's something that you want to hear, and if you want to start to see those messages go out so that you're just not always constantly hearing, all the reasons men suck, then please sign up to become a channel member and support the cause. I appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with me tonight. And like I said, get those likes up if you haven't already. And we're going to talk soon. Stay tuned. I have some really exciting collaborations coming up. I'm pretty excited about it. So yeah, just stay tuned and be sure that you've already hit all the notification buttons so you will always be aware when I go live and when I share videos. And yeah, we will talk later. Bye.